Built in 1976, the Class 43, or HST, is most certainly an icon on the British Rail network. But how did this revolutionary train come about? Join me as I explain the history of Britain's high-speed train. In May 2019, GWR worked the last of their Class 43 HSTs out of London Paddington, a train that had been running on the Great Western Network for ironically just over 43 years. So let's go back to the 1970s to see how this train came about in the first place. At the start of the 1970s, British Rail were looking for new ideas for a train to bring a new look on high-speed travel. Many ideas were put forward, including one that actually went forward, the APT, or Advanced Passenger Train. One of the new features on this train was the fact that it tilted when going around corners, something that had never been attempted before. The idea of this was to improve journey times by going faster, but being safe at the same time. However, this didn't quite work out, as passengers started to feel sick and ill when the train tilted around corners. Because of this, the APT was taken out of service for a few years, whilst they tried to find a solution to this problem. Eventually, they found a solution and trialled it with passengers. The trial went well and passengers loved it. But even though this looked the way forward for high-speed travel, British Rail were losing money. This is because the APT was the most expensive train British Rail had built, costing just over £40 million, or $52.5 million US. This meant that after just 5 years of altogether service, the APT was retired. This meant that British Rail had to find a just as good but cheaper solution to high-speed rail. This is when the idea for the train that we all know and love was invented. So from 1975 until 1982, works began at Crewe on what would become a revolution in rail travel. A total of 197 power cars were produced, 43002 being the first and 43198 being the last. The first of these trains entered service in 1976, just a year after the works on them began. When built, the HST was fitted with the Waxman Polenta engine. These engines are easily recognisable by their scream as they go past at high speeds. The HST today is fitted with an MTU V16 4000 engine. The train weighs around 70 tonnes and can hold 990 imperial gallons of fuel. To put it into comparison, that's the same as around 12 Lamborghini Hurricanes. The HST also holds a world record for being the fastest diesel-powered train in the world. In 1973, the prototype HST set the world record for the fastest diesel train by reaching a top speed of 143.2 miles per hour. Another HST then went on to break this record whilst carrying passengers by reaching 144 miles per hour in 1985. And then another HST set a new record when it made a test run in 1987 by reaching a speed of 148 miles per hour. Although when in service they are limited to 125, but as shown they can do a lot higher. During the course of the Class 43's time on the rails, there were a few incidents, one being the 1997 Southall train collision. On the 19th of September 1997, an intercity Swallow liveries high-speed train was working a service from Swansea in South Wales to London Paddington, formed of power cars number 43173 and 43163. One of the first issues that day, even before the crash, was the AWS, automatic warning system, which in the Class 43 that day had been disabled due to the fact that the system was locking the brakes and not freeing them. The error here was that the driver did not notify the signaller that he had disabled the system. This was not just a huge error, but against operating rules. Later in the journey, whilst on approach to London, even though all the correct signal aspects, double amber, single amber, red, were showing, the driver did not see both amber signals as he was distracted packing his bags, so only saw the red signal, which by that point it was too late. The HST was about to pass through Southall when the driver noticed a freight train on the same track as his train. The driver then hit the emergency brake to try and slow the train down. The freight train had also noticed the HST and tried to speed up his train, but nothing could be done. With the freight train going about 25 miles per hour, whilst HT was going around 70 miles per hour, they collided. The first coach tipped over on impact with the hopper, and the second coach collided head-on with another hopper, causing it to rise upwards into the air. 7 people died, 6 on impact and 1 later in hospital. The driver was charged, but the case was dropped, as the court later found out the driver was not certified to drive a train fitted with ATP, automatic train protection. So the company First Group were fined £1.5 million. More research was done after the incident to see how this could be prevented in the future. I will now show a footage of a recreation of the incident. Some viewers may find this upsetting, so viewer discretion is advised. Another incident that occurred was like this one in Newton Abbot.
Good evening. 29 people have been injured, 4 of them seriously, after 2 trains collided at Newton Abbot station this morning.
The HST was working a service from Penzance to Edinburgh and was standing at platform 3. Little did they know that the Class 158 had been cleared into the station. The Class 158 could not brake in time, causing it to smash into the back of the HST. 29 people were hurt, 4 seriously injured, including the Class 158 driver. Newton Abbot had recently undergone a major upgrade at the station. Platform 4 had been removed. This was the platform the Sprinter would have stopped normally, but because of the upgrade, they now had to share Platform 3 with the HSTs. At the end of the 1990s and start of the 2000s, British Rail was no more, meaning that railway companies now privately owned the HSTs. Some of the companies that used the Class 43s were First Great Western, now Great Western Railway, East Coast, now LNER, GNER, Midland Main Line, and many more. Unlike the HST, most trains have storage tanks to store human waste. Regulations say that in the UK, train operators are allowed to discharge 5 imperial gallons of sewage per carriage per journey onto the track. The carriages on the Intercity 125 do not have storage tanks for human waste, meaning they just discharge it straight onto the track, something that most newer high-speed trains do not do, meaning that the HSTs are actually constantly at risk of breaking the law. The solution was to get rid of all HSTs by 2020, which both GWR and LNER have done. Cross Country and EMR, East Midlands Railway, have not actually said when they will replace their HSTs. But now times are changing, and a newer generation has begun. And so, on May 18th, the last ever GWR HSTs left Paddington Station, paving the way for a newer, faster generation of rail travel. And that was the history of Britain's high-speed train.